Hello, Greysteel Nation. Sully here with Barbell Prescription, keeping you strong and healthy in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. We're doing a special episode of the C7 Chronicles today. I told you I probably wouldn't give you another update too soon, but new shit has come to light, and I recently discovered that my friend and beloved colleague, Niki Sims, has been dealing with a similar injury. Niki is a fellow coach, a colleague, a friend. We've actually known each other for years now.
A long time.
Yeah.
Cool.
And she's a very impressive lady. She's the head of human resources for Barbell Logic, which means that she is constantly dealing with my shit. And she's a very, very strong lady, a very gifted coach and administrator, just a remarkable person. And I knew that she was dealing with an injury over the last several months, but one of my clients, who is a great admirer, by the way, told me that this was actually a radiculopathy. For some reason, I had it in my head that you were dealing with a kind of like a hamstring tendonitis or something like that, but it actually turns out to be something similar to what I've been dealing with the C7. So I thought it would be great to have Niki on today and discuss dealing with an injury like this, not just a radiculopathy type of injury, but any injury in general, because it's something that we all have to deal with from time to time as athletes. You know, when you grab life, occasionally she grabs you back, and that's just part of what we do, living life to the fullest. So, Niki, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, thanks for that amazing intro. Let's see what to tell about myself. I'm 35, so I'm not young anymore. I live in Southern California because I want to pay a lot of money to live in nice weather.
Well done.
Yeah. I've been a gym rat for a really long time, and then I got into CrossFit back in like 08, and it's in 09 that I started coaching people. So I've been coaching people since 09. And specifically lifting since 2013. And I think that's right around when I met you, 2013, 2014.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Your hair continues to be amazing.
It's one of the few good things that can be said about me.
Oh,
thank you.
So yeah, I've been lifting for a really long time, and I honestly knew that I'd done pretty well getting away with lifting for a really long time without anything catastrophic happening.
Yeah, you have been sort of charmed. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen you lift some unholy loads. I mean, you 445 deadlift or something like that.
430, 440 is my big goal. Still chasing, but yeah, 430 is my current.
And pretty huge squats. I know that Niki has competed in powerlifting and strength lifting and acquitted herself very well. So you're strong and you're capable, a very experienced lifter and coach. But then, why don't you tell us about it?
But then I had kind of wrapped up last year with my deadlift PR of 430, which I was just super excited about because I have this, I really want to deadlift 200 kilograms in competition, which is 440 pounds. And that's just like the thing that I can't wait to accomplish. And so training was going pretty well early last year. But also I've been known to spend maybe a little bit more time in the gym than I should. Like, I just love it. And I was adding in extra stuff. I was doing a lot of lunges, and I would do jujitsu, and I upped the frequency there. So I was definitely beating myself up a little bit. And things had started to hurt a bit, like in my hamstring. I was like, so that's where you probably got the idea of hamstring tendonitis, because that's what I thought it was. And then one day I was doing deficit deadlifts at 345, which I had done before. Like, it's not a scary weight for me. It was on like my second set of 5. So it was just like, I got this. And I picked it up and I actually felt a pop in my back, which I'd never felt before. And to be honest, I've lifted much heavier weights with way worse form. Like, I think I was actually in really good extension for that rep. So it was just like such a shocker. And I've never actually lifted a weight where there was that dreaded pop and actually had to drop the bar. That was like a really big kind of oh heck moment for me.
Right.
Like a bit of a panic. Yeah. And so that's when whatever I thought was going on, maybe with like my hamstring, hip, lower back, that was just kind of under the surface. That's when things started to get much worse. Like I was in pain more often, as in like outside the gym, and I wasn't able to work around it very well. Like I had to keep lowering weight of everything. It just wasn't something that I seemed to be able to work through.
So this was the big kahuna at last. It finally caught up to you.
It did.
Right. So what were the kinds of symptoms that you were having in and out of the gym?
Yeah. So pain was getting really bad on the left side. It was isolated to my lower back left side. And it really felt like it was just above my iliac crest. I couldn't tell if it was related to my spine. I really didn't know. Like I also felt it deep in my hip. I was like, man, maybe I tore my labrum. I couldn't feel my glutes. Like that was really interesting. Like I kind of messed around with lunges and I was like, man, I can feel my right glute work when I was doing lunges, but I couldn't feel it as much in my left side.
See, as a physician, that gets my attention when somebody tells me something like that. All right.
Yeah. So that was
okay.
Interesting.
What else?
I would be in lots of pain when I was sitting. So like 5 minutes working, it would just hurt so bad. And then laying on my side, on my right side, which is how I fall asleep, I couldn't do it. It just started to hurt so bad. So there was just a lot of pain, left lower back, hip, that I just couldn't really pinpoint. But yeah, it was mostly pain.
So obviously that had an impact on your training and your work and,
my identity.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, really, when you're like us and you've really embraced the physical dimension of your existence and you understand how important it is. And it's actually your career.
Yeah, you and I, like, this is our bread and butter. Like, we ask people to trust us to do these things, and then the thing hurts us, and we're like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah, it's really horrible. So, it got into your head.
Oh yeah, it was a rough summer. Like, yeah, like I just had a lot wrapped up in my identity of being a strong deadlifter. Like that, I have weird fantasies about deadlifting 500 pounds, and it like really makes me excited. Like lifting is my connection to my body in a good way, and it makes me have a better relationship with food. Like it's my therapy for the day. Like it's what brings value to my day. So when that wasn't there,
that's a huge thing. I mean, what we do, because we train, right? So we're into this whole stress recovery adaptation cycle, and our nutrition comes into it, and our sleep comes into it, and our stress reduction comes into it. And it becomes this sort of like center of this sort of holistic idea of who we are. And then, you screw that up, and it really screws you up.
Yeah, I was totally depressed.
When this first, I was devastated. I mean, I don't think I showed it, but I was just devastated and scared to death, not because I was afraid that like anything bad was going to happen. Like this was not going to kill me. It was a herniated disc, for crying out loud. People have them all the time. But because like in terms of physical performance, maybe my best days are behind me now. And, I'm going to have to settle for, sweating to the oldies or something. I don't know. And, am I ever going to be able to lift heavy again? And because when it first happened, I was really kind of debilitated. I'd try to do a bench press warm up and it would just like go, oh, seriously. That's how I knew, like, I thought I had a muscle cramp.
Yeah.
And I was lifting with it and everything was going fine. Then one day I lay down, I do an empty bar bench press, and then I do 135, which is my second warm up, right? It's just a 135 is a warm up. Very first rep went like I couldn't lift it on the left side.
So weird.
And scary. And like
That's like we're just used to being able to breathe, and it's like you go to breathe and you can't breathe.
Yeah. So it's really an existential kind of thing, isn't it?
Big time.
So you had this problem.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there?
Man, so I told my coach, I was working with Matt Reynolds at the time, and he was like, okay, let's do our normal protocol of like dialing everything back. Let's see what you can do that doesn't make the pain worse. And the trouble with that is like our options just kept getting more and more and more limited. Like everything was hurting. So like I got to the point where I couldn't squat, I couldn't deadlift, I couldn't bench press unless my feet were on the bench. So the first response is, okay, let's pull it back and let's just see what we can do, which has worked for me in the past whenever I've run into some sort of
SOP for coaches. It's what we do with our clients, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was when it started to get worse outside the gym too. So it was like, okay, when it's really affecting your sleep and it's affecting how you're sitting and everything, like that's a problem. So I started to ask around a lot more, via Andrew Jackson. Like he was, since I'm like too shy, he like asked Will Morris for some advice, and Will, who knows everything, he couldn't really pinpoint it. And then I tried to see, so I saw a PT and that just, it wasn't great. And I went to my general physician and that wasn't helpful. And then I went to a sports physician and she said, well, it seems like it's just a really bad strain, but you should really dial back on the powerlifting. And I was like, okay.
Like they, we're really lucky at Greysteel. We have a great sports medicine doc who works with us and who like gets what we do. So I send all my people to him and he's like, yeah, let's see what we can do to get you back into the bar. Cool. But most of these guys, it's like, what, you did a 2-year fellowship to learn how to say it's probably a strain, but you should
do less of what hurt you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I got that. And the thing that, and I don't know if I should have been annoyed about this, but I was like, I wanted to be honest about telling people, my doctors, that I lifted, even though I knew they were immediately going to want to rule it out. But like, no one ever asked, like, was it like a heavy weight for you? Was it something new? Was it a new stimulus? Because I feel like that would be important. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Part of what we call the history and physical examination. Yes, that would be important.
Yeah, no one ever asked.
Sports medicine guys, I hope you're listening. Like, we should be able to offer CME for this. CME credit. Yeah.
So no one ever was really helpful in telling me what it was. And I couldn't just really go all the way into getting all the medical advice that I could, because like my health insurance has some limitations. Like the PT, of course, was like, come see me 3 times a week. And I was like, I have to pay a deductible every single, or a copay every time that I go. Like, right. I can't afford that.
Especially for the value that I'm getting in return.
Right. I was like, I can lay around on the floor and just have any old stranger watch me do that. Like, I don't need to pay you to watch me roll around the floor. And so I eventually just started to do the only things that I could do in the gym, which were just like curls. I was doing like a lot of curls.
So let's be clear here. Did you ever get a structural diagnosis, like any imaging or anything like that?
I got an X-ray, and that didn't show anything.
Of course it didn't, because it had to be a soft tissue injury. So
right.
It's a waste of photons.
And then my insurance wouldn't pay. They wouldn't request an MRI.
Right.
So yeah.
So that's just a quick word of advice for you and anybody who's watching. What I've discovered is, with our current sports med doc, we don't have to worry about it so much. But what I've discovered in general, when I refer a client, like an online client, to sports medicine, or one of my in-person clients to anybody except our sports medicine guy, who's just brilliant, I tell them, you got to go in there and tell them the same thing. So when you go see your orthopod or your sports medicine guy, you can't go in there and say, yeah, I work out with weights. You just can't do that. What you have to do is you have to go in there and say, I am a power lifter. That's who I am. That's what I do. Like, you have to make it non-negotiable. This isn't something that I do to stay fit, although it is, right? You have to go in there and tell them, just like if you went in there and told them, it's like, well, yeah, I play tennis, or or I am a marathon runner, or I'm a wrestler, right? That they know it's their job to get you back to that. But with lifting weights, it's kind of like that's not in their equation, right? So I always tell
like
people,
you're playing with knives or something. They're like, well, maybe just don't
right,
play with knives.
right. So I always tell people, go in there and tell them, like, I'm a power lifter. This is what I need to do. And it seems to help a little bit.
Is there a way to, I mean, they wanted to go through the channels. They're like, well, we're going to have to do an x-ray so that we can get an MRI. And I was just like, I know you're not going to see anything in the x-ray. Like, I don't have a broken bone. Like, how can I bypass having to spend thousands of dollars on this x-ray that I know is not going to be useful?
You know what? I don't know that. The only thing that I would do is I would, doctor to doctor, or maybe informed patient to doctor, try to shame them a little bit, right? Like that is so intellectually dishonest. Like, that this is a soft tissue injury. What are the chances I have a broken lumbar vertebra, right? Or a broken sacrum or something like that? What are the actual, especially if it's somebody like you, young, like if it's somebody like me, maybe they can justify, well, maybe you got a met, right? Maybe you got a pathological fracture, maybe like, really, you think I have osteoporosis? But anyway, especially for somebody younger, say, look, we both know that this is not a bony tissue injury. We both know that this is a soft tissue injury, right? I have a herniated disc. I have some sort of, myofascial problem, something like that. We both know that this is soft tissue. Why don't we just skip a step and try and find out what the anatomy is? Because the plain x-ray is just not going to show you what it is. And, just try to appeal to their intellectual integrity and hope it works. But yeah, I mean, you raise a very good point. And part of it is not even the doctor's clinical decision-making, because so much of that clinical decision-making has been taken away from them by the insurance companies.
Yep,
Can't get in. Yeah. So, but they know how to, on the other hand, they know how to game that system a little bit. And they should have done an MRI, but
yeah, it would make more sense.
They didn't. So what happened next?
So just kind of kept, one day I tried to do a deadlift, and this was like legit like 4 months later, after like some dark times. It took a really long time for me to be able to get 135 off the floor, which was just like
horrible.
Oh, so bad.
That is like,
and like I had, gosh, I think that the big kahuna, as you called it, I think happened in like May. And like during that time, I also like got dumped. And then I had this other health thing come up, and like, the world shut down. Just like, I know 2020 was a hell of a year, but it was just like, man, this is a tough one. And I really love jujitsu, and it was limiting my ability to do that too, which is like my only social outlet, because I live in my house and I work in my house and I lived in my house. So it was just really difficult to stay positive. But eventually I was able to get 135 off the floor, and we just kind of kept building up from there. But I could tell it was just kind of creeping back in. And I actually started working with Jordan Stanton, because I was like, this guy's been through a lot. He's got a really cool background.
I was there for some of it. I remember that time he got so sick. And he just still functions somehow. We took a ride from the airport, and he was like, let's go to the hospital before we go to the thing.
And he just keeps going.
He does keep going. Why don't you tell people a little bit about Jordan Stanton?
So Jordan Stanton,
remember, he's not here, so we can say anything we want.
Yeah, he's like a Yeti, just like a hairless Yeti, just like really muscular. He was a nurse. He runs a gym. He's got a kid, and he's just really strong. He had I don't remember exactly what his back problem was, but it was bad. I think it was like a herniated disc or something, or more than that. He's broken his clavicle from pressing so heavy. Like, he's very strong. He just deadlifted 700 pounds, and he works with competitive lifters. And I was like, I really want someone who's gonna have that knowledge on the medical side of it, but also know what it's like to be competitive and just like really want this. And when I told him my symptoms, he was like 99% sure. He was like, oh, that's for sure a bulging disc. And it was really digging into your nerve. I was like,
that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. So we just started working with it like it was that, and things have been getting a lot better.
So what was your strategy that Jordan and you came up with for training through this injury? Because that's what you're doing, right? You're training through the shit, right?
Yep.
Which is what you have to do, right?
Swimming through it. So we changed. What did we change? He has me hardly pulling from the floor, which is interesting because I was pulling from the floor like every session. And for those of you who haven't seen my deadlift, I have really long legs, a very teeny torso, and my arms are like kind of long enough. So in my deadlift setup, my hips are almost as high as my shoulders. So that's a long, it's a lot for the back to overcome.
Yep.
And so he elevated my deadlifts to pull from blocks. We did a lot of floating deadlifts. So we're really training a lot of like the eccentric component. He has an interesting theory, I hope he's okay with me saying this, about rack pulls, how if you're doing rack pulls and you have a disc issue, every time the bar slams back down on the pins, he thinks like it kind of resonates and can really kind of set off whatever you're feeling. And I thought that was really interesting.
That doesn't sound unreasonable to me.
Yeah. When you really think about it.
Yeah.
So he has me pulling from the blocks, and like the only time I pull from the floor is once a week when I do some floating deadlifts, and it's like one rep comes off the floor and then it just stays off the ground. So he's really training the erectors like they're an endurance muscle, because they really are. When you're moving through a deadlift or through a squat, they have to hold their isometric contraction for the entire rep, not like everything else. So he's really trying to build that up. And he has me working in positions where I usually do experience the pain, but just making sure that it's like, okay, if it's a dull ache, that's okay. If it's like a zap, or if it's residual, or if there's any kind of sensation afterwards, like that's not okay. But there's a lot of pause work, tempo work, eccentric, slow controlled work. But back to doing all the lifts, I changed my squat stance and back angle a little bit, so I wasn't leaned over as much. And that seems to be helping too. But we've made some really good progress. Like my squat's back up to 240, which is great for me.
I remember you posting on IG that first day that you squatted. It's like you were like
95 pounds.
OMFG, it felt so good to squat. I remember that.
And I hate squatting. So for a squat to feel good, it's like a big thing.
Yeah. And how's the deadlift doing?
Good. I just hit off the blocks 345, which was really exciting for me because that was the weight that things went south with. So that had like some emotional weight to it as well. And like, I have to, like, now that I'm back at this heavy weights, I'm feeling that area more. So I'm just like it was kind of skipping through the field a little bit for like the last, month or something. Now I'm just like, okay, things are really heavy now. I do jujitsu 4 or 5 times a week. So that's been really taxing. So I'm trying to just keep everything in full view of like, okay, now we're back at these heavy weights where I tend to go into more flexion. We need to be more careful. I'm really taxing my system with jujitsu. So I'm just
what's interesting about all of this is how similar Jordan's strategy has been to the one that Will gave me. Now, Will's not able to. Will apparently it took command of South Korea at some point, and so he's got his hands full, and he's not able to stay in touch with me. But before he left, he basically gave me this overall strategy, and it sounds very similar to Jordan's. What he said to me is, do not fall for this bullshit where like you're doing a little bit of weight for lots and lots of reps. It's like you've got to work at the weight that you can work at without pain. Very, very similar. And the bench press, which is the most problematic and the most irritating for it, same thing. A lot of focus on eccentric work. He said this is the one time where it's useful to have somebody like holding the bar on the way. It's all you, bro. Bench press,
the teamwork bench press.
Bench press. And that strategy has worked really well.
Cool.
And so it's actually a very, very similar strategy that these two guys have converged on. So that's interesting to me.
I wonder, I've been having to think through a lot of making sure I'm really balanced really well from left to right in my feet and then all the way up into my pelvis, and just like really paying attention to any little shift. And I'm wondering if you're having to really pay attention to that on your bench too.
Yeah, on the bench and on the press. So there's a part of my brain that wants to shift the weight a little bit, right? So I want to like come up on my left foot and shift the weight to my right a little bit on both the bench and the press, and that leads to some ugly singles.
Yeah.
But when it first started, I couldn't bench 135 without going awry. Started again, and was happy to get 95. When I finally went back, I had to take several weeks off because I was just in too much pain, and anything that might compress that nerve a little bit more was just out of the question. So when I got back, I was able to sort of do a 95-pound bench, which is pathetic. And I'm back up to 190.
Yes.
I was doing 250 when this all happened. I was starting to think about it, and I had sort of dialed in over the course of three-month blocks. Over the course of 9 months, I had dialed in a block programming strategy that was allowing me to make gains more rapidly than I have in years.
Man, and when you could do that, it's just like, oh my God.
I was starting to think about a 300-pound bench press. It's like, I might get a 300-pound bench press in my 60s. How badass would that be? Right? And then this happened. But I'm back up to 190. The press is back up to 140, and nice. and that was me being conservative. I felt like I could have done more, but I'm just trying to be good. And because I took time off the squat, and it actually affected the squat and the deadlift too.
I bet.
And I've been using the video, and I've had to be very, very careful looking at the video. And I've discovered I use video a lot because I have form creep like everybody else, only more so because I'm kind of a klutz. And I've noticed on video that I do all sorts of weird shit with my neck on squats and deadlifts.
Oh,
and
are you sticking it out and stuff?
Yeah, I stick it out. Like I get to the top, kind of thing like that. It's like, well, that shit's got to go, right? So we're fixing that, and so it's coming back. So that was your training strategy. What about, almost more important, because the training strategy is going to be individualized to the lifter and the injury. But this was devastating for you. And,
it was really tough mentally.
And it was for me too.
Yeah.
What about your coping strategies? How did you?
I really tried to stay focused on what I could do. And that worked for a while until I got really bored of what I could do and just really was just like, what's the point? It didn't feel meaningful. And I don't miss training sessions. And I know you don't either. So to not want to go to the gym is just like that's bad, I tried to keep a grip on my nutrition. So it's just like, okay, I can control this. Let's see what works for me well with nutrition.
You had to change because when you're not training ultra heavy with lots of volume 4 or 5 times a week anymore, well, you can't keep eating like you
food. I was so sad about that.
Yeah, it was. Sad.
I did more walks. I was like, okay, well, at least I'll go be outside. It's nice to be outside. I'll just have some more outside time. I love that. So I tried to spend more time enjoying what I could. I kept going to jiu-jitsu, but that had some limitations as well, because being in extension did not feel good. And so there are a lot of positions that in order to get out of the wrong end of that position, you have to do a hip bridge, and I just couldn't do that. So I was like, well, guess I'm just gonna be stuck here.
Well, jiu-jitsu is pretty courageous because your movement patterns are going to be innately a little bit unpredictable when you're sparring. So you just never know when you're going to end up. So good for you for even having the courage to do that. But yeah, I think that's important to focus on what you can do instead of what you can't. And then for me, I just had to keep telling myself, this is not the end.
Right.
People heal up. They come back from this. I'm not broken. I'm just injured, which is not the same thing. And reaching out to other people and making these videos, and the response to these videos has been I've really had a lot of support, and people sharing stories of they've been through similar things and they've come back, and that is helped a lot.
I wish I had done that sooner, to be honest, because it's like it was so funny. My mom, who doesn't lift, like she knows what I do because I send her videos and stuff, but like she said the best thing. She was like, you know what, Niki, you're an athlete. This happens. You're going to be fine. And I was just like, Mom, thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Cause like, of course, like professional athletes, they get hurt all the time. Like, and then they come back. Yeah. And like other people have done this and they work through it and then they come back, and like it happens to you and you work through it and you come back. It's just like, oh yeah. Okay.
I remember chiding myself at one point. It's like, well, what did you think? Right? Did you think that you were going to like just like be able to indefinitely push the limits of your physical performance and never get slapped back? Like the world was never going to slap. Like in any other endeavor, you don't expect infinite success and infinite progress, you know. But in the gym, somehow you get it in your mind. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep getting stronger and stronger.
I'm going to get that 300 bench.
Right,
I'm going to get that 500 pound deadlift. Of course.
Exactly. So like stupid. Of course not.
Do you feel like 300 pounds is still attainable for you on your bench press?
I have to believe it. It's the one that's the most behind. It's the one that was most affected by the injury. But, you know, maybe I'll get the 300 bench someday and maybe I won't, but I can work for it. And you know, the journey is what's important. I do feel like I'm going to get back to where I was, you know, on all the other lifts, and shooting for a 300 pound bench just seems like a salubrious thing to do at this point. Like to just, but I have to start over, and it's coming back. It's coming back. I think it's possible. Possible. How about you? You think a 500 pound deadlift is in the cards, or 200? I'm
definitely going to keep going for it. Definitely a 200 kilo deadlift for sure.
You have to, right?
Like if I die and never got my 440 deadlift, I would actually probably be annoyed about that.
Yes, same here. But the process of working toward it is.
Oh, that's the best part.
It's healthy. Yeah. It's the journey. You know, before this happened, I was already doing stuff that even after I became a coach and even after this became like my livelihood and my passion, I never thought that I would deadlift 415. You know, I'm old and I'm weak, and like I never thought I would get there, and it sort of happened. I never thought I'd squat 350 pounds at awesome. At 60. I never thought I'd do that. So, you know, it surprises us, our capacity to adapt in training and get stronger. It's actually kind of stunning. It never ceases to amaze me. So lessons learned. What do you think? Do you think you're a better coach and a better athlete because of this, or are you just too annoyed to be a better coach?
Actually, I think I am a better coach now. Yeah. I've started to do that thing where whenever you learn new lifts, you start giving them to all of your clients, or whenever you learn a new cue, you give them to all your clients. I've been doing that. I've been having people really focus on like how they feel their erectors, if they can feel their erectors, which is really difficult to actually feel what your erectors are doing. Paying really close attention to balance in their feet, weight distribution, making sure, and I always feel like I was actually pretty good at making sure people don't train in flexion when they're doing deadlifts, and I'm just even more aggressive with it now, and I'll just have like my tolerance for that is reduced, even though like even talk to Jordan, he's like, there's going to be flexion when you're pulling heavy and conventional. I'm like, okay, but I just don't want to train that way, you know?
Yeah. We tell people we'll tell people to stop in the middle of a set when we say, like, stop.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. And then I think it's really just helped me appreciate life outside of lifting. You know, lifting is of course a huge part of my life, but it's like it's not everything. I mean,
Right.
it's everything, but I'm going to be okay.
Right.
To have that, like, to know that it's like, oh, I'm more than just my deadlift. I'm more than just this aggressive goal that I set. Like, I am my training, and I am so much more than just that. I think that's actually been really helpful. And that helps me with clients too, because it's just like, oh, you have a huge, robust life. That's more to this. Like, if you go in so hard and just like keep running yourself up against a wall, like, yes, all of us are probably going to get hurt no matter if we are just so into training like I am or not. Like, it's going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have like a more balanced relationship with it, when it does happen, it doesn't like threaten you as much.
It's important. It's terribly important, but it's not all important.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Right. You live to train. You don't. You train to live. You don't live to train.
Yeah.
So to the viewer who maybe has just sustained some sort of injury that's really thrown a monkey wrench into their training and has them in pain, if there was something you could say to that person right now, what would you say to them?
It's not going to get better overnight. It's going to take some time, but it is going to get better. Like, it might be a couple months, but just know that just because it's a couple months doesn't mean it's forever.
Right.
It takes some time.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. What would you say?
I would say the exact same thing, that you're not broken. This too shall pass. Everybody gets injured, and you don't have to be under the bar to get injured, right? You can, you can train and be strong and hurt, or you can not train and be weak and be hurt, right? Life is suffering. I would tell them exactly what you said. It will pass. You'll be strong again. And until the next time. And that's just life. The difference is that life's aches and pains are easier to deal with when you're strong than
they really are. It's true. And like when you are going to come back and you're still going to be a strong person. Like,
right. So even hurt,
even
hurt and in pain and with your training just completely devastated and mine, you and I were still stronger than most of the people in our demographic when we were
about that. Yeah.
That's
cool.
So yeah, this too shall pass. You're not broken.
Yeah.
And it will get better. It just won't get better tomorrow.
And be nice to yourself.
Be nice to yourself. Take it easy on yourself. I have to tell you, this was even better than I imagined, and I knew it would be great.
Yeah, seems like therapeutic.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And maybe we should have you on again sometime. There's no maybe about it.
I would love that.
Awesome.
I love your YouTube channel.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I know you're busy, and so am I. So I can't thank you enough for doing this with us. It was wonderful.
Thanks for doing the whole series. It really has helped me tremendously. So
I'm glad.
And I know it's helping thousands of people.
And it's
more,
helping and it's helping me work out my stuff. Thank you so much, Niki. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay strong and stay healthy.